Today, we are in Fort Smith, Arkansas, where we will discover why the region was dubbed Hell on the Border, as well as learning about the significance in the American frontier, Judge Parker the hanging judge, and Bass Reeves, the first African American US Marshal. Then, after enjoying some delicious food and some beautiful murals, we tour a brothel from the 1800s. Then, to complete our day, we toured the recently opened United States Marshals Museum and Learning Center. Well, welcome to Fort Smith, Arkansas. We've got some fun things planned. Let's see what we can find.
In the early 19th century, the Cherokee Indians migrated to the fertile lands of Arkansas, which were also home to the Osage Indians. Tensions escalated between these native inhabitants, leading the U.S. government to establish a military post in Fort Smith in 1817. Our visit started at the point where these tribes' borders meet, the confluence of the Arkansas and Poteau River. As we were exploring these historic grounds that were vital to the United States' westward expansion, we could imagine ourselves following in the footsteps of early settlers and soldiers as they strolled through these hillside ruins of the original fort and the Trail of Tears overlook. The commissary building, a key center of activity in the fort's heyday, was our next stop. A story of everyday life on the frontier is depicted through exhibits and artifacts that surrounded us as we entered and became fully absorbed in the sights and sounds of the past. We then entered the visitor center, where interactive exhibits, the former courthouse, jail, and barracks allowed us to probe even further into the history of Fort Smith. Although there are guided tours and educational programs available, we were unable to participate because of time constraints. A visit to Fort Smith would not be complete without learning about the illustrious hanging judge, Judge Isaac C. Parker, a no-nonsense judge who oversaw the notorious Hell on the Border Court. Known for its unwavering pursuit of justice, Judge Parker oversaw the federal court for the Western District of Arkansas in the late 1800s. His famous words, "Let no guilty man escape, but permit no innocent man to be punished," has become a timeless saying. We felt a slight chill as we descended into the prison's depths, where seasoned offenders awaited their fate in prison. This tiny room is rumored to have held up to 70 prisoners at once. Take note of the door leading outside. This is where the prisoner's lawyer would come in and talk to his client while being confined to the locked cell. Not to be forgotten is the one-of-a-kind Bass Reeves, who was among the first African American deputy U.S. Marshals to serve west of the Mississippi. His unwavering commitment to enforcing the law and his fearless pursuit of outlaws has left a lasting impression on American West history.
Here's a place you wouldn't want to wind up, especially under Judge Parker's ruling. The hanging gallows. Oof.
We discovered the hanging gallows as we continued to explore the grounds, a clear reminder of the harsh realities of life on the frontier. Justice was served here promptly and frequently without mercy. 86 men were executed by hanging between 1873 and 1896 under the jurisdiction of the Federal Court of the Western District of Arkansas and Indian Territory. There is something for everyone to learn here, regardless of your level of interest in history. Beyond just housing ruins, the grounds of the Fort Smith National Historic Site cradle the spirit of our nation's past. The next time you are in the Northwest Arkansas region, be sure to stop by to discover the allure of this legendary location for yourself. After our visit to the National Historic Site, and being just a few steps away, we decided to go to the Bricktown Brewery for a quick bite to eat before continuing with our adventure. As soon as we stepped inside, we were greeted with the inviting atmosphere of this historic building. The Bricktown Brewery is where history meets delicious food and drinks. The blend of exposed brick walls and contemporary decor creates a cozy vibe that's perfect for any occasion. in the mood for something quick and easy, take a look at these mouth-watering chicken nachos. They're loaded with flavor, piled high with all the good stuff just like we liked it, and tasted as good as they look. You don't want to miss out on these. After a quick lunch, we drove through the National Cemetery, which is located near the National Historic Site, to pay tribute to the brave souls who served our nation. This hallowed ground is a reminder of the intertwined history of Fort Smith and our nation's military legacy. It holds the memories of countless heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. As we drove slowly through the rows of pristine white headstones, we couldn't help but feel a sense of reverence and gratitude. Each headstone tells a story of bravery, sacrifice, and service. It's humbling to be here and reflect on the sacrifices made by these courageous men and women. Their dedication and selflessness will never be forgotten.
We've heard a lot about the Fort Smith Museum of History, so we're going to go in and check it out. Come on with us.
The Fort Smith Museum of History, founded by local women in 1910, was originally housed in the 1840s commissary building of the second Fort Smith that still stands today. The National Park Service acquired the property and the museum relocated to its current location, the 1903 Atkins-Williams Warehouse Building. This four-story structure was once a wholesale grocery distribution center and witnessed the thriving commerce of early Fort Smith. Throughout history, the building has served a variety of purposes, including a cold storage facility and, during Prohibition, a nightclub. After being listed on the National Registry in 1979, renovations began, and in 1987 it was transformed into the museum you see today, preserving the city's legacy for future generations. The museum is located 1/2 block east of the National Historic Site and Judge Parker's courtroom, and strives to preserve approximately 40,000 artifacts documenting the history of the city and surrounding regions, as well as the Atkins-Williams Warehouse. While walking through the self-guided tour, you can listen to the audio tour on your phone. Simply call the number, follow the instructions, and you will be guided through the museum while hearing stories about the artifacts you see. Exhibits depict the city's transformation from a rough military outpost on the frontier to a modern-day hub of industry and culture. Upon entering the museum, you walk through a timeline of events that depicts the city's role as a frontier outpost during the 19th century. Fort Smith, from its establishment as a military fort in 1817 to its pivotal role in the Trail of Tears and the Civil War, helped shape the American West. You learn about the soldiers, settlers, and indigenous people who met in this frontier town. From Judge Isaac Parker, dubbed the Hanging Judge, to the notorious outlaws of the Wild West, their stories are woven into the fabric of Fort Smith's history.
They do have elevators in here, which is a good thing. If you have bad knees, can't go up and down steps.
Moving forward in time, the next exhibits focus on Fort Smith's Golden Age, which lasted from the late 19th century to the early 20th century. During this time, the city grew into a thriving center of commerce, culture, and innovation. Fort Smith grew into a booming trade center, with cotton and timber industries driving the economy. The Atkins-Williams Warehouse, which stored goods for markets throughout the region, serves as a reminder of its prosperous era. The Timeline's final exhibits take you up to the present day, celebrating Fort Smith's resilience and vibrant community spirit. Through interactive displays and multimedia presentations, you'll learn how the city has evolved while remaining true to its roots. Fort Smith continues to thrive in the 21st century, with the revitalization of downtown and the diverse cultural tapestry woven by its residents. The Fort Smith Museum of History reflects its ongoing story, inviting visitors to explore, learn, and connect with the heart of the community. Before leaving the museum, be sure to stop by the drugstore soda fountain to enjoy an old-fashioned ice cream float. Next, stop by the pharmacy, which is filled with all kinds of vintage artifacts that will take you back to the old days when medicine was made to order in-house. You will find all kinds of things on display in the cabinets there, from old apothecary medicine bottles, to old candy containers, to all kinds of soda bottles. After looking around the drugstore, be sure to stop by the gift shop and check out a souvenir or book to expand your understanding of Fort Smith's role on the American frontier. You'll find books, toys, postcards, and a variety of other unique gifts in this old-fashioned gift shop. Whether you're a longtime resident or a first-time visitor, the museum curators invite you to learn more, ask questions, and immerse yourself in the stories that shape our shared identity. Remember, the past is not just something behind us, it's a living, breathing part of who we are. We continued our drive through the historic district, searching for beautiful murals that are scattered around the area. Each of these is a work of art telling a story of its own. Then we came to the park at West End and had to check it out. Even though they were wrapping up an event, this whimsical place was calling our name. I mean, who doesn't love a merry-go-round? I bet this place would be fun on a cool evening when the lights come on. Next, we rounded the corner to find Miss Laura's Visitor Center. This place was built in the late 1800s as a high-end brothel, catering to the city's booming male population during the frontier era. But it wasn't just any brothel. It was known as the Queen of Bordellos. Today, Miss Laura's has been lovingly restored and repurposed as a visitor center, offering a glimpse into Fort Smith's colorful past. As we stepped inside, we found ourselves surrounded in the rich history of Fort Smith, from its Wild West days to its role as a key outpost of the frontier. Throughout the years, Miss Laura's has witnessed countless stories, from the exploits of outlaws to the triumphs of lawmen. Its walls hold secrets and memories of a bygone era. Whether you're a history enthusiast or just curious about the past, Miss Laura's Visitor Center offers an interesting look into the past. It's yet another interesting destination for anyone traveling through Fort Smith. Our final stop was the United States Marshals Museum and Learning Center.
Just down the road from the National Historic Site is something new in town. It's been here about a year now. I think it opened in July of 2023. We've been looking forward to seeing this. This is the US Marshals Museum. After several years of intense competition, Fort Smith, Arkansas was chosen as the site for a museum honoring the United States Marshal Service due to its 200-year history as a Western frontier military post. Then, after numerous setbacks which repeatedly stalled construction, the museum finally opened in July of 2023, 16 years after construction began. We were struck by the museum's unusual architecture as we approached it. It's modeled after a modified star pattern that symbolizes the star insignia worn by the U.S. Marshals. The first things that we noticed when we walked inside the building were the single-level layout that makes it accessible to all and the view of the Arkansas River. Then we noticed they have wheelchairs that you can use for free if you have mobility issues. The museum is made up of immersive galleries that depict how the Marshal Service began and how it has evolved. They explain the Marshal's critical, ever-changing role in upholding the rule of law, which is motivated by justice, integrity, and service. The museum's National Learning Center hosts educational programs on the Constitution, the rule of law, and civic literacy. Becoming a U.S. Marshal takes dedication, and this gallery explains the Marshal's role, how the agency was founded, its principles and duties, and the organization's overall history. The timeline explains the Marshals' history, from their founding in the Judiciary Act of 1789 to the service's critical work today. A series of interactive exhibits embedded within the timeline demonstrate the various types of work for which the United States Marshals are responsible, including court support, witness protection, fugitive tracking, and disaster relief operations management. The campfire is the central hub in the museum. Sitting on an elevated platform in the center of the room, 4 figures from different eras gather around the flickering campfire, sharing real stories as shadowy images shift and play across the walls behind them. This is a good time to sit for a while, take a rest, and listen to a few of these stories. As you listen to the stories, notice how the mood in the room changes. After spending time listening to the campfire stories, we learned more about the frontier marshals. In the newly found United States, the marshals were the first law enforcement officers. Since those early colonial days, the marshal's role has expanded to include new responsibilities and challenges as they became the symbol of law and order in the western frontier and Indian Territory. The museum has many impressive displays. Some you read, some you watch, and some you are immersed within as they explain the lives of the frontier marshals. The Old West Frontier Town exhibit has a saloon and a marshal's office as they may have looked back in the day, while other exhibits focus on Fort Smith's iconic frontier figures. One of these figures is Bass Reeves. You may have learned about Bass Reeves as we did in the TV miniseries Lawman, Bass Reeves, which is available for streaming on Paramount Plus. We highly recommend this series if you haven't seen it. This gallery shares his incredible story. He was a man who escaped slavery and later became one of the first African American US Marshals west of the Mississippi River. His work mainly focused in the deadly Indian Territory due to him speaking and understanding 5 civilized tribes' languages that included Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Seminole, and Creek. As we left the frontier, we entered a more formal gallery centered on the idea that the marshals have a duty to uphold the law. This gallery has a series of portals that led into 3 rooms, each focusing on a specific area of challenge within this duty. We were able to examine the marshals' role in the American civil rights struggle, as well as their involvement in segregation and the preservation of justice for all. Scenes and exhibits also demonstrate how the marshals played a critical role during the turbulent times such as Prohibition, violent white supremacist protests, riots, bombings, and natural disaster. In the modern Marshals Gallery, we were immersed in the U.S. Marshals' active, exciting, and broad work. Exhibits highlight tactics and technologies for tracking, apprehending, and extraditing fugitives in the United States, as well as dangerous locations such as Iraq and Colombia. Displayed along the top of the edge of the room, the names and faces of the 15 most wanted are shown. The centerpiece of this gallery is What We Stand For, an inspiring explanation in words of the marshals, both current and former, about why their work is important, what it has meant to them and others, and what the future holds for the Marshals organization and the nation they serve. Just beyond the open area of the museum's atrium is a Hall of Honor. This exhibit is dedicated to the marshals, deputies, and special deputies who have given their lives while serving our great country. The names of men and women who died in the line of duty are proudly displayed in this beautifully lit and peaceful space. You'll find a digital interactive display that will teach you more about the fallen marshals and the sacrifices they made. Be sure to take a moment of silence in remembrance of them as you look out through the glass wall at the beautiful Arkansas River and the Oklahoma countryside. Then, before you leave, be sure to stop by the gift shop. Each item you purchase helps support the museum and its mission to teach visitors the importance of the United States Marshals, the people who put their lives in harm's way daily to ensure our safety and freedom. Our family would like to say a very special thank you to all former and current U.S. Marshals, as well as all of our law enforcement officers, military personnel, their families, and everyone else who continues to make sacrifices and work tirelessly to keep our country safe and free. We hope you'll visit the United States Marshals Museum and Learning Center the next time you are in the Fort Smith area. We're sure you will enjoy it as much as we did.
If you travel by RV, you should definitely check out the recently opened Riverside RV Resort, which is conveniently located near all the Fort Smith's top attractions and sits on the banks of the stunning Arkansas River. It also has access to a 6-mile paved biking and walking trail. We hope we have given you some insight into what can be found in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Links to each of these locations can be found in the description below.
We hope you've enjoyed this video. Be sure to check out some of our other videos shown here. Until next time, remember, stay safe and have fun, let's travel.